In its 15 or so hour runtime, there is so much going on under the hood of Outer Wilds, both in design philosophy and thematic principles, that I could, and probably will, make tons of videos and essays devoted to both the broad strokes and finer details of one of the most uniquely and meticulously crafted gaming masterpieces that I've experienced in years. I have a lot of thoughts on the overall experiences of playing Outer Wilds and exploring the rich space exploration simulator, all of them taking up various amounts of space in my mind after setting off on my first exploration of the cosmos, such as how perfectly designed and in sync everything about its clockwork solar system is, how consistent its rules and ideas are, and how interconnected everything has to be in order to weave this intricate mystery for us to unravel one pulled thread at a time. But perhaps nothing stuck with me quite so succinctly as this. Outer Wilds scares the shit out of me. I give spoiler warnings in almost all of my videos, but I don't think I've ever meant one with as much sincerity as I do when discussing anything to do with Outer Wilds. If you haven't played Outer Wilds yet, you need to go play it. I cannot overstate how amazing this game is. And this has been said super commonly, but it's 100% true. The key to Outer Wilds is knowledge. That seems like a super cliche statement that you could probably apply to any game, but I don't think any game fits that as truly as Outer Wilds does. Once you know Outer Wilds and its secrets, you can never go back to the way it was when you first discovered it. The experience of playing the game when those revelations come to light will never be the same again. So please go play this masterpiece before it gets spoiled for you by either myself or someone else. Spoiler warning out of the way, I'm also going to preface the rest of this video by saying this exploration of why Outer Wilds is scary might just be a me thing. Fear, horror, the things that get under our skin and make us uncomfortably aware of our own vulnerabilities is a subjective thing. The things that effectively worm their way into the dark crevices of discomfort and dread in my brain may be distinctly different from the things that generate fear in your own. Fear and fright are not universal. Let's take an example from Outer Wilds itself, or more specifically, the DLC Echoes of the Eye. Echoes of the Eye is far easier to argue as a horror game experience for the vast majority of people than the main Outer Wilds game. We see far more elements of what we recognize as horror game staples in Echoes of the Eye, from sneaking and stealth elements to a strong emphasis on darkness in more ways than one, the overall tone and atmosphere of the game, intentionally creepy and foreboding elements, and actual beings that are threatening and dangerous blocking our path that will hunt and chase us through the darkness. And none of that particularly scared or bothered me. These types of elements, as well as most jump scares, maiming, mutilation, brutal deaths, all these things we see and experience as regular central elements in a horror experience just don't scare me. The most obvious, well-known, and probably widely shared source of fear and anxiety in the Outer Wilds is probably Dark Bramble. Like, all of it. The entire atmosphere of Dark Bramble is dangerous and oppressive, the foggy haze filling the space masking everything from sight, while the ambient sounds and music strike an unnerving, subtly sinister chord, inching the tension higher notch by notch as you slowly navigate your way through the fog. The twisted growths of the bramble vines and branches make navigation difficult and slow progress to a crawl. The seeds you must slip through to teleport you to a different place within the bramble, and how difficult it is to know which way to go and where you will end up, especially if you don't know how to use your scout, adds to the sensation of being aimless and lost, with every turn winding you deeper and deeper into the dangerous maze of Dark Bramble's space warping depths further away from safety. And of course, there's the fish. The fucking fish. Can't say that I have a particular fear of anglerfish, or fish in general for that matter, but that thing scares me.
That thing. It scares me.
Even more than the massive jagged-toothed fish mouth yawning open and descending aggressively upon you, it's the sound they make. The bestial, violent shriek they give the moment they sense you. When you're focusing intently on easing slowly, silently around the blind fish, or worse, unaware that they're even there in the first place, the sudden roar can really catch you off guard. To top all this off, the light from the anglerfish's lure is almost indistinguishable from the glow of the bramble seeds, making it entirely possible that as you seek out the next portal to advance you further into the bramble, you might run directly into an anglerfish instead. Navigating all this is of course made easier by properly using your scout and other tools and by having the right bits of knowledge, but not only are these things not foolproof and you can still end up getting caught by an anglerfish, beyond that you may end up encountering Dark Bramble and the anglerfish before you know how any of these tools properly work, leaving you with no proper way to address the situation aside from frustration, panic, and screaming a lot. Understanding all of this, I speak for many an Outer Wilds player when I say I hate Dark Bramble and I want to yeet it and its fishies into the sun. Although I definitely had my issues with Dark Bramble, there are much more seemingly innocuous elements of Outer Wilds, both big and small, that mess with my head and make my hands feel all clammy. We're not even going to touch on the deep anxiety that I have being under the planet's surface and deep diving into the absolute black density of an entire ocean weighing down on me. It's not great. I'm gonna have a whole separate video touching on that directly and indirectly, don't you worry. No, even without all that, we still have to deal with the things going on the surface of the planet, which essentially amounts to an entire planet covered in violently raging tornadoes, waterspouts, and hurricanes. Hi, I'm Fall, and I've lived through a Category 5 hurricane. I'm not even bullshitting. Look up Hurricane Michael in Florida of October 2018. I lived through that, and you know, I'm not like super traumatized or anything, but a stiff breeze can make me flinch, so you can imagine what dealing with Giants Deep did to my psychological headspace. It wasn't great. There's other perfectly notable horrific elements to Outer Wilds. Just as every planet introduces you to new concepts, new mechanics, new knowledge, and challenges, each one in their own way delivers a new source of deep, primal fear to confront, such as being buried alive in the caves of the Ash Twins, or the imminent threat of immolation on the Sun Station, or being entombed in ice with no escape on the Interloper, and of course the literal black hole under the crumbling, decaying crust of Brittle Hollow. Death is inevitable in Outer Wilds. Not in the generic, we all die one day kind of way, nor is it the immediate and more concrete death of something like piloting your ship into the sun for the 100th time as you try to land on the Sun Station because you're too stubborn to stop attempting it and you're too stupid to figure out that there's another way to do it. I don't recommend trying to do this, by the way. The juice is not worth the squeeze. No, death is inevitable for us because death is inevitable for the entire universe as we know it. And we just happen to be alive and present for the final moments before our little corner of existence burns away into the cold nothingness of the void. Our sun gives up its last struggles to maintain its life before finally imploding into a fiery supernova, destroying us and everything we have ever known, every trace of anything that ever came before us, and every possibility of a future to come. All of it gone. And our galaxy was not the first, and our galaxy will not be the last. And by the end, everything in existence will burn away into cold, black nothing. The absolute certainty of death, not just our own, but of everything we've ever known, loved, and held dear, is terrifying. It goes beyond the loss of ourself. It's the loss of everything. It's too much to even imagine being gone in an instant. It's mind-bending and breaking just trying to encompass it all, what that means for everything in existence to fade. It is final. It is inescapable, and it is exactly 22 minutes away. It's hard to imagine something more terrifying than that. Except there is something worse. In Outer Wilds, this humble, quaint, woodsy space simulator game has taken us there from the very beginning, even before we can take our first step on our ship. A time loop is a sinister thing if you think about it. Groundhog Day is perhaps the most well-known example of a time loop to the average person. A movie in which greatest actor of our time, Bill Murray, experiences a time loop when Groundhog Day rolls through, and he wakes up to find it's Groundhog Day again, and again, and again for pretty much the entire movie. There's some horrific undertones in this idea alone, one which the movie obfuscates, look it up, Google's your friend, through humor, but it's plain to see soon enough. Being stuck in a time loop, the same day repeating over and over again, nothing ever changing, nothing ever shifting, the whole world being stuck in a repetitive cycle no matter what you do, no matter what you choose, no matter how hard you resist and fight. It drives Murray insane. Oh sure, initially it's great. He can do anything, he can go anywhere, and he can act in any way that he pleases. These shallow pleasures quickly wear thin as the reality of every day being exactly the same sinks in. Murray, driven to hopelessness by the weight of a world that will never change, by a life he will never live free of the shackles of the present day, attempts to unalive himself. And he wakes up. He tries again, a different way this time, and he wakes up. And this repeats time after time, again and again, over and over again as he seeks any way, any solution, no matter how painful, to escape Groundhog Day. All his creativity, all his desperation, it does not matter. He awakens, he repeats, the cycle continues, and he will never, ever be free. I mean, technically he does get free later, but that's not the point here. I saw Groundhog Day when I was honestly too young to really fully comprehend what I was seeing. It was a different time, okay? Kids got to see people unaliving themselves in movies all the time. It was no big deal. I'm fine, I swear. The point is, I remember even as a child being frightened by this quirky, offbeat, slightly dark comedy of the year starring funniest man alive, Bill Murray. And not because he died a lot, but because it struck me just how frightening and unnatural it would be to live through the same unceasing, unchanging, repeating day over and over and over again. It scared me then, it still scares me now, and it's honestly amazing that I love roguelikes and time loop themed games, movies, and other media as much as I do, because there is something inborn that is terrified of being frozen in time. No matter how funny Bill Murray may be, Groundhog Day is a genuine, actual nightmare. And yet... Outer Wilds is infinitely worse. Because of the nature of Outer Wilds' particular time loop, it is so profoundly more terrifying than Bill Murray's time loop. Murray ground looped on Groundhog Day, and barring his unaliving attempts, he goes about his day, goes to sleep, and when he wakes up, it's Groundhog Day all over again. That's not what happens in Outer Wilds. In Outer Wilds, every 22 minutes, not even a full day, but every 22 minutes, the entire solar system is consumed in a supernova so hot that it erases every single thing in existence. This is terrifying for a few reasons. First, there's the obvious getting consumed by a fiery ball of supernova sun. That's, probably bad enough to deal with on its own the one time. But the inevitable, unavoidable fiery death of the sun and solar system every 22 minutes? And the only way around this is to die prematurely via some other likely violent means. Yeah, I'm pretty sure those psychological scars are gonna start adding up real quick. But as seems to be the theme in this video, it gets worse. What happens if you actually somehow manage to break the loop? If you find a way to free yourself from this time loop, what then? Surely then we finally get to live the day after Groundhog Day, and then the day after that, and then the day after... Oh, right. "22 minutes. 22 minutes after we wake up and the sun is gone and everything we know evaporates with it as if it had never been. And this time... absorbing this revelation is a thundering blow. Staring down the barrel of this metaphorical cosmic gun as God's finger lovingly cradles the trigger has to be one of the most terrifying thoughts that I can conceptualize. The weight of this decision, this lose-lose choice that you are faced with, is encapsulated perfectly in a single, tangible, agonizing moment. You stand before the warp core of the Ash Twin Project, the very thing keeping time itself suspended in a 22-minute loop. And it's up to you, a humble, lowly, adventurous explorer, to decide to walk away or to end it all here, now, and possibly forever. Stay in this endless loop that will never change and nothing you ever do will matter, or take a gamble on something different. Something that will matter more than anything else ever has. You're betting it all, every life from the smallest single-celled organism to the most advanced life in the farthest reaches of an unknowably vast universe that you will never even get to encounter. And you're going to roll the dice of literal everything to go to the eye of the universe. And you don't even know what the eye of the universe is. The dice are heavier than any dice that have ever existed. All you have left is to let them roll and pray they don't come up snake eyes. Outer Wilds is a horror game. It has tortured my brain more than almost any horror game that I've played in years. And you know the sickest, most disturbing part? Now that it's done and I've finished it, I've experienced it in full, and I can never have any of the discoveries and surprises that are so integral to the game back. In spite of the fact that I think it is a special kind of hell, part of me wishes that I had my own personal time loop, just once or twice around, so I could experience Outer Wilds for the first time all over again. If you want to catch more Outer Wild videos and content, as well as other gaming related essays and commentaries by me, make sure that you subscribe and click the bell to be given notifications for when I make things, blah, 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 you know. If you're like me and you found Outer Wilds to be a secret horror game, leave me a comment and let me know what elements you found to be the scariest. Or you can tell me that I'm a giant pussy and it wasn't scary at all, that's fine too. If you want to check out more content by me, take a look at my Mad Max review for a summary of why, despite its rough edges, it may be the best movie franchise game and one of the most overlooked games ever released. Or you can check out a video I made about games that I like strictly for the vibe and the aesthetic. Thank you to my Patreons for supporting me while I clumsily figure out how to write stories about games and then make them three-dimensional for videos. If you'd like to support my content, check out the link to my Patreon in the description below. Down there-ish. That way you can get your name up in lights with like these fine fellows over here. Until next time, remember, if the universe is going to explode in 22 minutes, take a good 5 minutes or so to have a think, and maybe a marshmallow. Stay salty, nerds.